A few weeks ago, when I mentioned that I was looking forward to this film, I mentioned that I've enjoyed every film put out by Disney Pixar. There isn't one that I haven't thoroughly enjoyed in one way or another. Boy, can I call 'em. This film is easily one of the best films this summer, and may very well be the best animated film of this year. Now, I did mention a few weeks back that Pixar did have big shoes to fill coming off of last year's WALL-E, because I thought WALL-E was by far one of the best animated films I had ever seen. Now, is this as good as WALL-E? I'll discuss that in a minute. But first, let me give you a brief summary of the plot of this film. The film starts off with a little boy, Carl Fredricksen, who one day wants to grow up to be a great explorer. One day, while running through his neighborhood pretending that he's exploring the world, he runs into this little girl, who also wants to grow up to be an explorer. The two hit it off immediately, and of course when they grow older, they get married. So the first 10 minutes of this film is basically dedicated to these two growing old together. And they do have a very good life, and their biggest dream is to go to South America. So they keep trying to save up money to go to South America, but every time they get a little bit ahead, something happens, like they get a flat tire, or someone has to go to the hospital, or a tree crashes into their roof, or something really ridiculous, so they end up having to lose all their money for their trip to South America. And what I'm about to tell you isn't going to ruin this film, because again, this happens in the first 10 minutes. As the years go by, Carl's wife starts to become somewhat frail and sick, and she passes away of old age. So Carl is left alone in the world, but he still wants to fulfill him and his wife's dream of going to South America. Now, Carl's job his whole life was working with balloons. So what he does one day is fills up millions of balloons, latches them into the chimney of his house, and takes off. Starts flying south towards South America. So that's the basis for this film. Now, as I mentioned before, this is a very good film. Disney Pixar has always had a great ability to tell very good stories. And the plot to this film really pulls you in. You really feel for every character in this film. However, there is a bit of a problem with this film that didn't occur with past Pixar films. This film is somewhat depressing at times, and that doesn't happen too often in animated films nowadays. As I mentioned before, the main character, Carl, has to deal with the death of his wife, with growing older, with realizing his limitations, with dealing with his own death. These are some pretty serious topics to be dealing with in a children's film. Now, while these are serious topics, I don't think it's anything that kids can't handle. All these topics are dealt with in the purest, most sincere way possible, and Disney Pixar is not trying to make light of them in any way. They are shown for what they are, and it is part of the main story. But the good thing is that there is so much good coming out of this film that it outweighs anything depressing that might come out of it. The conclusion is so good and everything wraps up so well that all of those depressing feelings you felt in the beginning just go out the window. And I watched this movie in a packed house, and let me tell you, kids and parents alike were loving this film. I saw some parents rolling in the aisle, they were laughing so hard, because there is some genuinely funny stuff in this film. There's one character that's been shown in a lot of the previews for this film, and that character is Doug the dog, who comes in about halfway through the film. And his character alone is pretty funny, but it's him with the addition of hundreds of other talking dogs that makes it so hilarious. Now, one thing I have to do is I have to compare this film to last year's WALL-E, because this is the latest film put out by Disney Pixar after they released that film. Was this as good as WALL-E? I don't think so. WALL-E was an accomplishment in every meaning of the word, and while this film is very good, it is somewhat depressing at parts. But even that being the case, this is still a great summer film that both parents and kids can enjoy. So, final rating. This is easily the best animated film to come out this year, and this film so far has been the highlight of my summer. I'm going to give this film 4 stars. I want to give it a little bit higher than that, but I did give WALL-E 4.5 stars. So I'm going to give this just a little bit lower than that. However, this film is great. Parents and children alike should love this film. It is genuinely funny, the story is great, and anyone can get into it. Let me conclude this review by saying that it upsets me when people accuse Disney Pixar of having too much random humor in their films. I really enjoy some of the humor in these films. It's genuinely funny and SQUIRREL! Take care.